here to refute the claim that universal access to free college tuition in the United States would actually decrease economic growth. My claim is that universal access to free college tuition does not affect economic growth. The advocate's secondary claim 1 was that an increase in required tax revenue would stagnate the economy. His evidence being that the fact that consumer spending decreases when taxes increase. To that, I say that an increase in required revenue in most cases does not have a long-term effect on our economy. Let's take the tobacco industry, for example. According to Neil Nisperos from the Daily Bulletin, in his article dated March 31st, 2017, entitled Why the Cost of Cigarettes Just Went Up in California, he states that the tobacco industry was hit with a 40% tax hike on cigarette prices. In this same article, Robert Kastner, who is a professor of economics and public policy at UC Irvine, stated that even with a 40% tax hike, the quantitative effect is very small, meaning that this $2 price hike will not affect the number of smokers. In fact, according to NPR, which is the National Public Radio, in their article dated April 24, 2017, tobacco sales, although they have dropped due to price increases or health concerns, profit margins are growing every single year and have gone up 77% since 2007. So you see, an increase in taxes for government revenue would not necessarily affect long-term sales, causing our economy to fall into a stagnant state. The advocate's secondary claim 2 was that tuition costs rise when government subsidies increase. His evidence stated for this claim is that tuition costs will rise as a result of increased enrollment rates. I say that government subsidies increasing has very little to do with tuition costs rising. According to Barry Fethke, a writer for the Chronicle of Higher Education, in his article dated April 1st, 2012, entitled Why Does Tuition Go Up?, he quotes former Secretary of Education William J. Bennett, who formulated the Bennett hypothesis, which states that federal grants increase revenue but do little to increase enrollment. Fethke also noted in his article the market power formulation. The market power formulation is a theory which states that grants, aid, and subsidized loans will boost student demand and will lead to higher prices. Bennett says that there is a discrepancy with this theory. The discrepancy being that the average subsidy per enrollment in the United States is actually declining, while the average tuition sticker price is still rising. The other point which Fethke made references in his article deals with the spending constraint model. This is yet another theory which states that rising tuition is the obvious consequence of declining state appropriations, not government subsidies. Because of these reasons, I say that the advocate's claim is invalid that tuition costs rise when government subsidies increase. The advocate's secondary claim 3 is that economic return value associated with a college degree does not warrant free college tuition. His evidence he presented here was that college degrees do not guarantee high-paying jobs. To that I say that although that may be true for some students right out of college, depending on their field of study, if we look at the bigger picture, however, having a college degree will render high-paying jobs in the long run. According to the article in the website of the Bureau of Labor Statistics written by Elpa Torque, entitled Measuring the Value of Education in April of 2018, she states that although it is difficult to quantify the full value of an education, she believes that the more you learn, the more you earn. And now in closing, I would like to leave you with this quote from Francis Bacon, an English philosopher and statesman who said, "Knowledge is power. Power to live a decent life, power to earn a decent income, power that brings you respect and dignity. When knowledge can bestow the power for so many things, why should it be restricted to a few who have the advantage of wealth? Knowledge needs to be free for all those who deserve it, and what a person deserves should be decided by an individual's capability and intelligence, and not by wealth."
Excuse me. Well, the example that you had on the first point I thought was kind of interesting. The tobacco illustration, though, may be a little bit problematic because there are some exceptions about tobacco prices and with increasing the price, decreasing the demand for that. You suggest that it's not inelastic, and in part I think that's probably true, but that's because of the nature of tobacco use, not so much because of the price issue. So although you've got an interesting argument here, I think the example is probably going to raise some doubt about whether or not that's the appropriate way to illustrate that. I mean, let's face it, people who are smoking, they also have an addiction to the nicotine that makes the increased price less important than the fact that they need to have the chemical, that they've got a chemical dependence going on with it. The second argument I thought was an interesting point. It needs to be explained a little bit more clearly. You're giving us some, look, there's a complicated theory that's being explained here, and I thought that you tried to present it in a relatively clear way, but we've got two theories that are coming in conflict with one another, and the data supporting one needs to be explained a little bit more explicitly. I appreciated the way you developed the argument. I'm not sure that I understood everything that was being presented in some of that quick format there, but there is a discrepancy like you're talking about, and that there's the quote from Bennett suggesting that we have declining or that we've had increased tuitions while we've had declining support for students going in. I think that does seem like it's counterintuitive, and I think that discrepancy does seem to undermine the argument that the advocate was making on that particular point. The third point I thought was the one where you had the strongest response, suggesting that there is a long-term impact from academic achievement and knowledge, and I like the kind of philosophical position that you take at the end of that particular benefit. It's not apparently quantifiable, at least from the evidence that you presented. I don't remember if the advocate provided some quantifiable evidence on this sort of thing and what the substantial differences are. It seems a little conclusionary. I like the phrase, the more you learn, the more you earn. That's a nice pithy way of suggesting this point. Does it prove the point, though? That's the thing that is a little bit problematic. But I think you went at the essential concepts behind the argument without ever discussing the quality of the evidence that the advocate used. You've got good counterclaims here, and like I said, on that second point, I think there's a good theory, but it just needs to be explained a little bit more clearly. All right, thank you.